Posting a job online and hoping the right person applies used to be the best course of action for HR pros. But in today's market, where talent moves fast and competition is fierce, HR teams can't afford to just post and wait. Welcome to Honest HR, where we turn the real issues facing today's HR departments into honest conversations with actionable insights. I'm your host, Nicole Belina. Let's get honest. Recruiting outside the job board isn't just a creative exercise anymore, it's a strategic advantage. Today, we're helping you expand your hiring efforts through smarter sourcing strategies, creative recruiting channels, and proactive hiring. Joining us is Tim Sackett, CEO of HRUtech.com and SHRM contributor. Welcome to Honest HR, Tim.
Nicole, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. So I'll dig right in. Recent SHRM data reveals persistent labor market frictions with about 33% of job openings in July 2025 unable to be filled by unemployed individuals from the same job group, and about 27% of unemployed individuals unable to match with the jobs in their field. So when you hear statistics like that, where so many open roles and available workers still aren't connecting, what does that tell you about the recruiting landscape, and how it's changed in the last few years?
You would like to say it's changed a lot, but really we still have this misalignment. And I mean, it's gotten a little better, partly because you have fewer jobs, so people take jobs maybe they don't really want. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to have an educational system in the job economy kind of always align with each other. It's almost like we're trying to play catch up on the educational skills side of this to where the jobs are, and the jobs and the technology seem to move faster than what we can reskill workers for. And so we're always going to have this a little bit of misalignment there.
Yeah, really good points. And do you see any limitations or blind spots that come with relying on job boards? I feel like this is a pretty big question.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we'll probably dig in and talk about like kind of like what are the better ways to do this, but like you do have this kind of a weird kind of a sense of like, oh, I should just be applying for jobs, applying for jobs, applying for jobs. And that's what job boards are good at. And they've conditioned us to do this. I mean, if you go back all the way to Career Builder and Monster and then Indeed and LinkedIn, and like we've like literally taught candidates from birth, like here's how you get a job. In reality, we don't really get jobs that way, right? I mean, we do. Some people still do. I mean, you obviously have to apply, but there's also the networking and the alumni databases and all this other stuff that we kind of figure out ways to kind of align with jobs that are open with people that are hiring. And not necessarily the job boards are great. And then if we throw AI in there, most organizations and companies, especially in the ATS world, are showing double the amount of applies year over year. So a company might have 100 people apply last year. They're having 250 people apply this year. And job boards have made it so easy for people to apply. It actually adds friction and difficulty to the people trying to hire.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen lots of LinkedIn posts, I'm sure you have too, where people will say, I've applied to hundreds, thousands of jobs and no responses, or, I've applied to 1,000 jobs and maybe I got a handful of responses. And so obviously relying on job boards, whether you're a job seeker or a TA team or an HR team, probably isn't the best way to go about making the perfect match.
I get the audience is going to know this because we're kind of inside baseball, right? We're all kind of in HR recruiting, like around the periphery. We've been around it enough that we know. Most people don't, right? So like they don't know what really happens when you have. I talked to a head of HR the other day with a company. They're averaging 750 applies per position. If you have 750 people apply, here's what really happens. A recruiter or an HR person will look at maybe 25 of those applications, right? So 725 people immediately never even got looked at. They'll go through the 25, they'll find a couple of good ones, they'll screen them, they'll send them on to the hiring manager and say, hey, here's the best. They're not the best. They're the best of those they looked at, but 725 didn't even get a sniff. And so like this black hole has gotten bigger, not smaller, when in reality, with all the tech we have, we shouldn't have black holes anymore for candidates. And yet it's just gotten bigger and bigger.
Yeah, really good points. So, how can HR professionals identify where those ideal candidates actually spend time? Whether that's, as you mentioned, online communities, events, is it niche industry spaces? What do you think?
I still love the referral, for like the good and bad of like getting employee referrals and knowing where they're from. If I know I just hired a great software engineer from a company across town, there's a good likelihood that that really great software engineer is going to know another really good software engineer. Maybe I should start there, from that standpoint. Or if I know we hired an accountant from a really great company in town, maybe that accountant person knows other really great talented people they worked with that are outside of accounting, right? And so it's this constant look of how do the people that we know that are good and doing good work for us, do they know other good people, right? Good people like to work with good people. And how do we actually go through the referral process and the networking within our own community of that we know of, like that are really high performing people, and see what referrals they have. For the most part, referrals tend to actually perform really well because, like, if I went to Nicole and you referred somebody to me, you feel like pressure, right? You're like, I'm not going to refer somebody that's terrible because it's going to look bad on me. We tend to refer people who are pretty good, and so there's a little bit of a myth around the referral thing, 'cause we tend to think, "Oh, well, Tim's just gonna refer his cousin or his brother or whatever." Well, if they're good, I will, but if they're awful, I'm not going to. Like, I don't want that on my back, you know?
Yep. Well, yeah, and I mean, HR teams can protect against that too, right? I mean, if you give me a referral, obviously, I think highly of you. I will, of course, screen that candidate, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to change the interview process or bypass the interview process, or at least I shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. That's the thought. Yeah. Yeah, if you have a really good hiring process and you still go through it, it should eliminate all those kind of false positives on referrals.
So many small organizations do struggle to compete with enterprise brands in hiring. What are some, but there are some innovative low cost approaches, that smaller HR teams can take to highlight their company culture and attract their talent organically. You have any suggestions?
Yeah, I still think social media for a lot of smaller companies is kind of like this secret sauce of being able to compete. Because a lot of big brands, even though they have all the budgets and all the money, they also have to be very kind of vanilla and whitewash when it comes to like actually doing stuff on social media. They're very brand conscious, right? So they're very cautious. If you have if you're an SMB in a local market, I'll take myself, I'm in Lansing, Michigan. If I'm a manufacturing company with 150 people, I can probably go out there and be a little aggressive on social media and kind of like push our voice and our culture and because no one knows our brand regardless. It's like what's the chances of us like doing something that's going to get us canceled in this world are pretty small. Now, if a big company like GM or Marriott or someone like that, Walmart, they have so much to lose and risk, and so we can go out there and really kind of leverage social media as smaller companies to do that really well. Part of that though is also using like really like micro video. Think about how I don't know how you are, Nicole, but like when a friend comes to me now and says, "Oh my gosh, I saw this thing today." I'm always like, "Okay, was it TikTok, Instagram Reels?" Like, what do you mean? Like, it's coming from some micro video that they learned something, which is cool. Like, it's entertaining, but like we have to be able to do that same kind of micro video in our kind of job advertising, employment branding. And again, as a small employer, we can get out there and do that pretty quick. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be a lot of money. You can just find somebody that, maybe it's a younger person on your team that's like gravitates towards that and loves doing that kind of stuff. Cool. Let's go talk to the hiring manager. Let's get them out there on social and figure out how we attract more talent.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, and you're right. Smaller organizations can be a little bolder, they can be a little quirkier, they can be a little more,
Yes. They're
risque.
nimble.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
nimble, and I do think that as Americans, we still kind of root for the underdog, right? So, when you can tell this, like, kinda small business, scrappy story, I think about there's a microbrewery, not far from my home that, does some really great social media storytelling, particularly when they're hiring. They always do these, like, kind of fun videos. It's like, yeah, I mean, if I were, a beer brewer or whatever whatever you call I'd be like, "Yeah, I wanna work there," right?
For years, I used to do this study. Michigan State University is really close to where I work. So like it's like a mile and a half away. It's huge. It's one of the big, it's like 40,000 plus undergrad students, right? So it's one of the top 20 biggest universities. And we had these major employers around the city. And I would go and we would do this kind of thing. So here's these students right here. And we would go survey them and say, okay, who are the top employers in Lansing, Michigan? They would never get the top employers. They would get all the national brands. It'd be like Starbucks was always in the top 5. There was actually 2 Starbucks in the entire city. I mean, like, why would Starbucks be the best of 40,000 students? How could that be, right? And it just showed like how important it is even for local market, small market, like, kind of like companies to really get out there. And because we just assume, oh my gosh, this is a great place to work. And I love working here. And the president loves working here and blah, blah, blah. And so everybody must know. No, nobody knows you. Nobody knows who you are. We still have to get out in our own markets and tell people we're a great place to work and here's where you should come work for us.
Yep. So, I mean, we all know LinkedIn is a powerhouse for networking, hiring, showcasing your professional identity. Have you seen any kind of unconventional methods similar to what, we've already been talking about where some of these organizations are using LinkedIn to source talent, more creatively?
The best one I do, and it really has, I mean, it has to do with LinkedIn, but it has to do more with leveraging, again, the networks of the individuals that you have that we don't. I call them micro sprints, like micro sourcing sprints, where I have a hiring manager. They might have, let's say, 7, 8, 10 people on their team. I'm going to pull them into a conference room. You're going to bring your laptop, your phone, whatever it might be. And they're like, hey, everybody jump on LinkedIn right now and let's find out. Here's the position we have open. And who do we know that potentially could fill this? Not who's looking, not who's interested, just who do we know? And you tend to leave there with like 10 or 15 names and emails and phone numbers and whatever. And now I can go do some real work. And it is leveraging the power of, we all have this network, professional network thing in our hands now, or right at the tip of our fingers. But even if you don't, let's say it's a non like white collar job, let's say it's a blue collar job, same thing. We all have like a mobile phone and we bring people in and we're like, okay, look on your Facebook or look on your Instagram or whatever. Who do you know that could actually do this job? And I'll contact them, right? And I'll reach out to them. It takes like 10 or 15 minutes. I always kind of prep the hiring manager to be the first one to talk or to ask like, oh my gosh, I know somebody, right? Because then it starts to roll and the people start to add. If it's the HR person or the TA person that's doing it, they all kind of tend to like just look at you and wait. And it's like, no, I need the hiring manager to own this. The other cool thing that happens in that culture of that is that the hiring manager and the team go, oh, so we actually are in charge of actually filling the talent on our team. We have some responsibility for this.
Yep.
And when that culture starts to happen and that flywheel starts to happen, all of a sudden, like you don't even have to look for people anymore. They're coming to you with people going, hey, I know we have this opening. The last time we filled it with Mary, this time I know this person, Frank, that would be really good. And it just has this culture of it's our job as a company to find talent, not some individual in HR.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that is, I think that's a reminder that hiring teams have to share with hiring managers on a regular basis, which is, hey, this is a team sport here. We need everybody's participation to get the best results.
I always share this analogy of like if we like say it's like it's around the holidays. And so we had a holiday party. We took the HR team out. We're in like a big van. It gets hit by a train. We all die, right? I said the company will mourn us, and then the next day some hiring manager is going to go like, hey, I have to hire somebody, and they'll figure it out without us, right? They're going to figure out how to hire somebody, and so we can be a conduit to help them and make it so much easier. And we have this value. But at the end of the day, they still own this. And we still have to get that culture around that hiring manager understand you still own the filling this position. I'm going to help you. And there's all kinds of ways I can help you. But at the end of the day, like the best cultures are when the hiring managers own the talent on the team.
Agree, agree. So we've talked a lot about creative ways to expand your recruiting strategy. We've touched on networking, we've talked about social media, um, but I want to switch gears for a minute. S- Even with all the right tools and intentions, there are still some, you know, uncomfortable questions about the process of recruiting. How much of hiring still comes down to who you know rather than who's qualified?
It's always been that way. There's never been a time in the world when it wasn't about that. I always think that actually the worst hires we make are when we don't know somebody. right? Because we haven't done our job enough to know the talent that's in the marketplace. And so we're not fighting against something that isn't right or wrong. It's something that's always happened. If like Nicole, you're going to go hire somebody and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I needed someone that's an expert in TA. In your mind, you have a Rolodex of people that you're going to go through. Now, it doesn't mean they're the best. And maybe potentially through that recruiting process, you're going to uncover some other people you don't know who are great. But at the end of the day, it's a sad fact of like, that's why we network. That's why networks are valuable. That's why you go on LinkedIn. That's why you reach out.
One of the smartest year-end moves, investing in yourself. Use those remaining dollars to join your HR community at SHRM 26. Learn more at shrm.org/SHRM 26.
The saddest part I have is when someone loses a job and like the first thing they do is reach out to me. I'm like, hey, I lost my job and I haven't heard from him in 3 years. And you're like, hey, that's sad. That's awful. So tell me what you've been doing. Like, why haven't you kept up with me? Why haven't we continued this relationship? And maybe before you even lost your job, I would have like probably offered you a different job or found you a job or whatever that might be, because we've kind of maintained this network. And that's hard for people to understand. Well, I already have a job, so why do I have to maintain this professional network? Well, in today's world, you don't know how long that job's going to last, right? And so you should always be maintaining this professional network. Also, my professional network helps me solve all of my business problems already, right? So I'm like, I can reach out to Nicole and say, hey, I have this question. Can you help me? And immediately I know I'm going to get a response. Whereas if I never like talked to you or never reached out to you and we never had conversation, you'd be like, what? Who is this? Why are you reaching out to me? Like, it makes no sense. It is an uncomfortable truth about recruiting, is that people that we tend to know get hired faster. Just reality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. You're closer to the process, to the decision maker. And you're right. Building a network is a lot of work, I guess. I mean, it's also a joy. To me, I see it as a joy, a pleasure to keep up with my network. And um, you're right. It is if you've got a great network that they can be a support to you, not just when you're job seeking, but some very bizarre questions that come up and it's like, "Hey, I know this person." I allot for networking time, for lack of a better description, every week just to keep up, and it's not. I mean, I guess it's to my benefit, but there's also a curiosity to it. Like, I truly wanna know, what you're doing, Tim, what you're probably gonna tell me some very funny story and give me something and I'll probably learn something too, right? There's certainly a benefit to can keep up with a network, before you actually need to tap into your network, I guess is the best way to describe it.
I think it's difficult because I think there's obviously people in the world that aren't great at networking or don't have, maybe they don't believe they have the most robust network, whatever that might be. I think we all have the ability to network. It's if you really are attuned to that or want to do that, right? Like I have somebody on my team right now that I literally was a barista at a coffee shop that I walked into. I was like, oh, this woman's amazing. Like, the energy was so positive, and so I'd go back day after day, week after week, and eventually it was like, hey, I have a position. Like, we need to talk, right? And so you have to be in the mindset of talent can always be in front of you, or potentially the next person I want to work with might be in front of me. And so how am I interacting with that person? Is it somebody at a grocery store? Is it somebody that's a waiter or a wait staff at a restaurant, or somebody at a hotel, whatever? Like, you run into people constantly that you have the ability to network, and we make the decision purposely if we want to or not. And I think the people who are best networkers constantly have a different mindset about, I want to make sure I connect with as many people as possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, we often hear networking is key. I mean, you and I have both said it in a few different ways in the last, over the past 20 minutes, right? Um, but does that inherently favor extroverts?
It could. I mean, I think extroverts in an interview process tend to, depending on who they're interviewing with, tend to come across very well. I think as HR professionals, how you combat that potential kind of bias is making sure that you don't necessarily have just extroverts interviewing as well, right? You want introverts that are interviewing. You want to kind of have, and we talk about this in panels all the time. You want to have, an inclusive panel across, right? If I'm interviewing 3 females and 1 male, inherently I'm going to connect with that male probably quicker than I am with a female. So if I really want to be inclusive, I want to make sure I have a female on my panel with me, because that person's going to then also probably connect with the females faster, and then we can have really good dialogue about who we think is the best. And so we tend to kind of forget those kinds of things. We just kind of go, oh well, that person was extroverted, and oh my gosh, all this energy, and I'm so excited. And you're like, yeah, but did you really listen to the answer, right? These 2 people were introverted, but maybe their experience and like their answers were so much more well crafted and better. They just came across as a different kind of energy. And so, but again, if I'm only extroverted and I'm attracted to extroverts, I'm always going to hire the extrovert. So again, like I need to make sure I'm crafting that interview process in a way that makes sure that everybody has a fair shot at
That's exactly right. And I mean, that's the benefit of having a diverse panel of interviewers. And I mean, that could be, and you're right, balancing out personality types, people across the organization, right? Different stakeholders that this person will theoretically work with. When you get those different, you can kind of see the dynamic. If you have somebody that you're interviewing who's an introvert, or they seem to be, just to see how that dynamic is, and then and see how it goes. But you're at least giving kind of a well-rounded interview experience for those candidates. So after addressing some of these, harder questions in recruiting, it's worth turning to a more strategic opportunity. And so, um, eh, I think I know your answer to this question, but but should HR leaders rethink traditional KPIs like time to hire, or apply a different lens to measure ROI in recruiting strategies? We could do a whole separate
We could do an entire
yeah, a
separate
whole series.
podcast on
Yeah,
this. I think on my tombstone is going to say, time to hire should be abolished, right? Or
yeah,
something to that effect. I always go back to it's the correlation causation thing. And the best one is the shark attacks and ice cream, right? They align, they correlate perfectly. In the summer when ice cream sales go up, shark attacks go up. Well, is that because of ice cream sales? If we just stopped selling ice cream, we would no longer have shark attacks. Well, no, because it's warmer, right? So there's no causation between those. Same with time to fill. You can argue that, hey, because you're faster, you're better. I could also equally argue that if you slow down, you actually might be a little bit better at recruiting. And so just because we're measuring speed, it doesn't mean anything. Now, why do we do that? Why did 99% of companies measure time to fill? And it's simply because it's clean data. And so we go, oh gosh, I know when a job opened, I know when a job closed, bing, that must be better. It's a health metric at best, right? Like if you know the average position is 37 days to fill and you're at 85, okay, you're sick. Like here's a problem. We need to help you. But if you're at 38 or you're at 36, you're no better or worse. You're in the ballpark. You're fine. Move along. Move on to more important things, because the time is not the important thing.
yeah, right. And I agree with that. I think there's a lot of metrics, or health metrics, as you refer to, just time to hire, that are pretty useless in my opinion as a standalone metric. But for me, I like to kind of put them together, right? To your point, if your average time to fill is 37 days, well, it's different if you're hiring, I don't know, a graphic designer versus an SVP of product development, right? I mean, if you're hiring an executive in less than 30 days, I would question maybe the the quality of your hire, right?
Well, even just taking that broadly across an organization. Let's say you hired 25 different roles throughout the year and you're just averaging average time to fill for all 25 roles. Well, that's kind of meaningless. But if you had a bunch of roles that were kind of low skill, no skill, high applicant flow that you can fill in 10 to 12 days, and you have some executive ones that take 120 days, like now you're being more strategic around, hey, do we need to be better here or here? Like, what are the ones that we really care? But if you just take a look organizationally, and go, "Oh my gosh, we're 37." Like, it's meaningless. It really means nothing.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yep. And so, in an age where culture fit and purpose driven work are top priorities, how can organizations fine tune their messaging to resonate with candidates who are seeking more than just salary and benefits? And we kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking about, small businesses recruiting.
I love the question because, we are getting back to, uh, a point where culture fit actually matters a little bit. I mean, we could argue that it always has mattered, but we also got into this segment of where it was like, it was all about skills. So I always ask a question when I interview for my own company. It's one of the last things I'll ask a candidate, which is, can you, in a sentence or two, can you tell me what our culture is? And if they can't tell me that, we've failed them in the interview process.
Yeah.
And again, everyone's going to kind of verbalize that their own way. But there's certain things that cultural, I think, artifacts and components that through the interview process, we want to make sure, are you definitely aware this is who we are? Does your crazy match our crazy? Like, we're not completely sane people here. And we want to make sure that when you come here, we don't surprise you that we might be a little different, right? And so if we can't portray that, or if anybody can't portray that in the interview process, you failed them. There shouldn't be anybody that at 90 days we go, man, they're just not a culture fit. Like, no, they should. Now again, they might say, oh yeah, 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 and they lie to you across the entire time. You're gonna have some of those false positives. But for the most part, if you keep having these cultural fit issues, you're not portraying your culture hard enough within the interview process.
Yeah. And I imagine it really does start even before the interview process,
Yes.
with an
Yeah,
organization,
screening,
right,
employment
and
branding,
yeah, and an
everything.
organization
Yeah.
really understanding their culture. There's been, I've had, friends, family members say, like, I went through an interview process, and a red flag to me was, each part of the process, somebody described the culture in a very different way, or it was contradictory, right? And so everybody, well, yes, my journey in an organization is going to look a little different from yours, but there are going to be some similarities that are, that kind of tell a story, and they all kind of are weave together. But then I do think that you can see some red flags when you're interviewing as a candidate, and some of the stories just aren't matching up.
It's a great point.
Perfect. Well, what advice would you give HR professionals trying to make recruiting more proactive and not reactive? And this is a big question, based on how we started this conversation.
Yeah, every company I've ever gone to and run TA, the one thing I tried to do immediately and consistently until it either happened or it didn't happen was create this culture of recruiting across the organization. We are always looking for great talent. And no matter who you are, if you bring somebody and say, hey, this is a noticeably better talent person. Now, a couple of things you have to do. One is you have to define, what does that mean? What does noticeably better talent mean to us as an organization? And then when you bring somebody, I 100% they're going to be interviewed. We're going to talk to them because we're always looking for noticeably better people. And once you start that flywheel effect of like getting people to understand, like, you can always bring talent. We're always looking for talent. And then the other side of that is the one piece that we talk about is that my hiring managers have to own the talent on their team. You're going to be responsible for filling these jobs. I'm going to help you. We'll show you how. You can do those two cultural things. You shift your entire organization focus around really increasing the talent of the organization. And once you get there, like, you can do anything. Like, you can have a lot of fun. The job becomes really fun. And I know most HR people, the audience that's in HR listening to this goes, I hate recruiting, Tim. Most HR people hate recruiting. I get it. It's really hard. But if you get the organization to view talent in a different way where everybody owns talent, it's job for everybody to bring talent in, that job can actually be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. You know, eh, when I join a new organization, I do something similar and really try to, figure out how I can get the organization to love, or at least not hate, recruiting, right?
Yeah.
Make it less painful, however that may be, however we can help
Yep.
them solve their woes, and and eh, help them understand that, yes, we're experts in what we do, but also we need your expertise to help us with the process.
Nicole, let me share one last thing about this that I think is really important for us as HR people and leaders is I never allow a hiring manager to make a hiring decision on their own where they're going to take blame later on for a bad one. We're all going to make false positive decisions, and I'm going to be the first person to stand up there and say, "No, no, no, Nicole and I made this decision together. We both missed. Sorry." Because what happens is your hiring managers immediately go, "Oh, I'm not here by myself." Because we have so many that are afraid to make a decision because they know the history is they're going to get beat up if it's a wrong decision. And I'm just not going to allow that to happen.
That's actually a really, really good point. If you can help hiring managers hire confidently, then you've really got something for sure. Yep. Good points. All right, Tim. Well, thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having me.
So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Honest HR, and we will catch you next time.
Hello, friends. We hope this week's episode gave you the candid tips and insights you need to keep growing and thriving in your career. Honest HR is part of HR Daily, the content series from SHRM that delivers a daily newsletter directly to your inbox, filled with all the latest HR news and research. Sign up at shrm.org/HR Daily. Plus, follow SHRM on social media for even more clips and stories. Like, share, and add to the comments. Because real change starts with real talk.
SHRM. This podcast is approved to provide zero 0.5 professional development credits, also known as PDCs, towards SHRM CP and SHRM SCP recertification. Enter the following PDC activity ID into your SHRM activity portal to log your credit. 27HKCJ2. Again, the code is 27HKCJ2. This code expires January 1st, 2027.